everybody, welcome to a new edition of Box Seats, a Friday edition of Box Seats. I'm your host, Frank Holder, sitting here with you. And of course, I am accompanied by comedians known as Talent and comedian known as Fig. First of all, it's Friday. I'm happy it's Friday. How you guys doing today?
TGIF, baby.
Good money, baby. Good money.
Yeah, ain't nothing like good money, right, fellas? Ain't nothing like good money.
You know, ain't no such thing as bad money.
Now, you know how we always get the show started. We always get the show started with a COVID report. And my COVID report today is the Washington versus Oregon football game officially got canceled 20 minutes ago. So, you know, I mean, literally, as we find out every single day, there's a cancellation every day of a football game, a basketball game, or something that's happening in the college ranks. Is happening because why? Because the college teams are continuing to play. And, of course, people are slipping through on the guidelines. So there's that. Now, I got to talk about something that is going to make me I'm kind of happy about. There is a UFC flyweight championship fight. It's this Saturday. Fig, you might like this one.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
It is with Denison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. So I want to ask, hey, Fig, I didn't know you was a flyweight champion.
It's been a lot of years since I've been a flyweight. I think I was 6 months old, I was a flyweight.
Well, I would tell you this. If I had to pick a fight, I'm picking Fig. That's all I'm saying. I'm picking
Yo, man,
Fig.
that's all I'm trying to tell you, man. There's a lot of Figueiredos in the UFC, man. They be fighting, man, and winning.
Yeah, well, I'm picking Fig. Tell who you picking.
Not Fig. Fig is the light-skinned Nate Robinson. I'm not picking Fig.
This ain't boxing. This is MMA now.
Actually, it's UFC. Unless that's the
UFC.
same. I don't understand the difference between MMA and UFC. I don't get it.
They be fighting with smaller gloves and they can kick you.
Well, the difference is the MMA. MA is Young MA, the rapper. That's her league. You know, that's the MA. And then, they make blue cheese. That's all.
Well, let me throw this out there. Just say that I'm picking Mr. Fig for the UFC fight this week. But anyway, you got to start talking about today. You got to start talking about the Patriots, and that's the part that's making me unhappy because Cam Newton looked horrible horrible. So I guess the question is now. I'm going to ask you guys the same question I heard all morning. And see what you guys say. Challenge them to start with you. Do you think Cam is done?
No. I just think it is what you just said. I just think that they hit some horrible points because it's too up and down to say you're done. It's what he has to do, though, is find the level of play at a consistent level. That we haven't seen this year at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, granted, early on we could blame 2 or 3 of those games on COVID and all that, but you can't blame 16.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? It's called COVID-19. It ain't even 19 days.
Okay, that's true.
16. COVID-16. You can't blame it. You know what I mean? I don't think he's done, Frank. I think that this year didn't go according to plan. Now how we talked about this was going to build up his work. Nah.
I don't think so. It should be noted, Cam has absolutely no wide receivers. Julian Edelman is he's been out with an injury to his knee. And then, of course, you got a couple of other wide receivers not playing up to par. They're getting no separation or anything else. And then Cam really came in really, really late, didn't get a chance to know the playbook and everything else. So I'll throw that same question out to you because this morning, to you, Fig, this morning, I didn't hear one commentator mentioning any of that. They were all saying, Cam's done, Cam's done, Cam's done. Now, I'd like to see how Cam plays next year after he has all that under his belt with some wide receivers. And then we can make a great assessment. That's how I would like it. Maybe, of course, you see I'm a Patriots fan and Patriots, I'd like to say that for the record. But to be in all fairness, I think Cam started behind the 8 ball when he got started this season. But that's just me. Fig, what do you think? Do you think Cam is done? And do you think Bill Belichick should get rid of him now and worry about getting somebody next year?
Man, I don't think so. But here, you know what? The nature of the black quarterback in the NFL is they probably will get rid of him, and everybody's talking about he's done. But here, the same exact people were talking about that the Patriots didn't have any weapons. Mm-hmm. And it's a good thing that Tom Brady got out of there because he wouldn't have nobody to work with. Now, add on COVID to that, the fact that he caught COVID and probably wasn't himself for about 3 or 4 weeks, and the fact that 9 players, starters, opted out before the season.
On the defense. On the defense.
The Patriots are decimated on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the fact that they didn't have any money to pay anybody so they could get some receivers or somebody to be able to help Cam out. So basically, the wins that they got is all Cam because they really didn't have nobody else to help them. Mm-hmm. Everything that they got this year is all Cam. So he carried basically a team of not stars, and they were able so far to win 6 games. You gonna blame that on Cam? Like, come on. It doesn't make any sense. They wouldn't blame it on any other player. I don't see any other quarterback in a hurry to go to the Patriots. Jarrett Stidham didn't look any better when he got in the game.
He looked horrible.
Was supposed to be Bill's boy.
He got horrible. He looked horrible. And I'll say this, y'all, that was from Fig, who's a Giants fan. Just to say that he's being fair and let's be, you know, whether I'm a Patriot, I don't want to seem like I'm a homer and this and everything else, because to be honest and to be fair, you know what I mean? I'll say this. Cam started out in a bad situation all the way around. And if I'm wrong, talent, you can call me out. You can say I'm wrong. He started in a bad situation. And then on top of that, as the season is going on, it started to get worse because obviously COVID. And then I'm not even talking about the opt-outs and everything else. It just really was. And that's the main reason why Tom Brady left. He didn't like his situation he's in. So let me ask you the next question, talent. And the next question is this. When the season's over, Bill Belichick said right now he's sticking with him. When the season's over, will they pay him? Do you think the Patriots are going to pay him? And you know, and I'm not going to say they're going to pay him peanuts, but do you think he's going to get a nice contract? I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about what you call a contract. I'm not talking about Dak Prescott contract. I'm talking about just a nice contract. Say,
I think he'll get a decent contract still, because here's the thing: me, you, and Fig are avid sports fans. Who, if all 3 of us can see that it's not a Cam thing, the problem is bigger than that, then a great coach like Belichick got to see it. Mm-hmm. And he got to know that I got to surround this guy with some pieces. I got a guy. He's good. I'm not losing faith in Cam, but now it's time to put some pieces around him, and let's go get back to Patriot football. Because you're talking about, it's been 20 years since you've seen a game where the Patriots end with 3.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah.
Well, and 20 years since you've seen them get less than 10 wins on the season.
Yeah. Again, another fact. So
20 years plus.
20. That's a long time. It's been 20 years since the Dallas Cowboys were relevant.
That's 30.
Well, while the Patriots never had less than 10 wins in that 20 years, the Dallas Cowboys, I don't think, has ever been better than 8-8.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, but you know what? It's kind of funny. The knock on Cam Newton is they were saying that he wasn't an accurate passer. Well, the MVP of last year is also not an accurate passer in Lamar Jackson. His passing ability is not very accurate, but he's a great quarterback. You know, right. I mean, there's more aspects to the game of even playing quarterback than being a great passer. Can you manage the game? Can you get the ball to where it needs to be? Do you have escapability? There's other qualities and other things that quarterbacks could do. I mean, look, there's been a handful of great quarterbacks in the NFL, and they're at the top echelon of the game. You talk about the Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes. You have a handful of greats. Montana, you know what I mean? There's a handful of greats, and then everybody else is pretty much good, and they're great managers, but you have to build a team around them in order for them to be successful.
Right. If you get Cam Newton, one great wide receiver, it changes everything, because now everybody can't double team anything. Of course, then he can do the short game because, you know, the wide receiver would be scared of deep threat wide receiver. Then Cam can run the ball if they need to run. You know, then they're scared of the pass because they can, you know, do short pass. Everything just doesn't fall on Cam if you get him one great wide receiver. They already got an offensive line. They already got a couple of great pieces. A lot of people are coming back next year. I don't think they really need to mess with too much. You know, that's just my opinion.
Let me just ask you this. Frank, you had him for like a game. Mm-hmm. But what if the Patriots had Antonio Brown this year?
Yeah, yeah.
He's on a different season.
Yeah, yeah. And he's that one wide receiver that could have came into New England and made a huge difference. I know they would have won a lot more games than that because we all know everybody's scared of that deep threat wide receiver. You know what I mean? Everybody's scared of him.
He takes the top off and he makes it. He gives it the offense ability. That's not a great running team. To maybe having a opportunity to run the ball a little better because you know the defensive backs can't step up. They have to play for the pass. So it gives a little more room for running too.
Right. Well, the Patriots are a great running team and not the best, but they're a great running team, and they would even be a better running team because again, that one wide receiver opens up a whole lot of things. It just opens up a whole lot of plays. But anyway, talking about the Patriots, let's talk about now Tampa Bay. Because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we all know Tom Brady left the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and everything else. And the question, came up this morning. Tampa Bay's coming off a bye week. They got 4 more games. People are saying, hey, they literally could run the table, which they can, because they play Minnesota this weekend, and of the next 3 games after that, they play Atlanta twice, and then they play and then they play Detroit. So Tampa Bay literally could run the table and then go right into the playoffs. But if Tampa Bay runs the table, I'm going to ask you, Talent. Well, first of all, let me ask you this, Talent. Do you think Tampa Bay can run the table? Because they play Minnesota, they play Detroit, and Atlanta twice. Do you think they can run the table?
Yes, I think that's a good setup to run the table. I think they definitely can run the table.
Okay. And if they do run the table, what do you expect them to do in the playoffs?
I expect them to go to at least, if not the Super Bowl, the game before the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I think they're going to get deep in the playoffs.
Okay, so that's disrespect. So, Fig, same question to you. Do you think Tampa Bay will run the table? And if they do run the table, where do you expect them in the obviously in the playoff situation scenario, and how you think they'll run it?
You know what? I think they can run the table. Will they? I'm not sure. Here's the reason why. As bad as Atlanta is in the NFL, it's tough to beat a team twice in a row, especially in a short period of time, because you get to know somebody, you get to know the personnel, you get to see some things. I'm not sure they can beat them twice in a row. I do think that they will be able to beat Minnesota. I think they would definitely be able to beat Atlanta at least once.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Possibly twice, but at least one time. And I think they will get into the playoffs. If they get into the playoffs, I think they will be able to go at least into the second round, provided that they let Tom Brady be Tom Brady and stop asking him to throw the ball way down the field so many times. That's never been Tom Brady's game. They gotta you gotta let a great quarterback be great. Stop asking him to do what he's not good at.
I think you made a great point, because in the last 3 weeks of it, they play Atlanta twice. In the last 3 weeks, they play Atlanta twice. So I know they'll beat Atlanta one time. We all know that. And they probably beat them handily. But that embarrassment and them being able to come back for them to play again, it might be a much closer game than people are expecting. So now let me ask you this, Talent. Let's say it doesn't happen like we all predicted to see. Does Bruce Arians get fired?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think somebody's got to fall on the sword. When you fall short, somebody's got to fall on the sword. We've seen it in the NBA with the Clippers this year. I think the same thing can be said about Tampa Bay. If they fall short, because everything right now is about what Belichick's going to end up doing and what Brady's going to end up doing at the end of this season.
Right.
Who went further, who did more, so who benefited from the split. And if Tampa Bay falls any less short than what I said, like that game before the Super Bowl, that championship game, if they fall any less than that, or like let's say they get upset, they say they squeak in the playoffs, right? One grand opening, grand closing. He's got to fall on the sword. Brady's not falling on the sword.
Right. Okay. Fig, what you think?
I believe that it's exactly what Talent said, because what would be the reason for Tampa Bay losing? It's clearly not the level of talent that they have on the field on both sides of the ball. They got good pieces on the defense. They got great pieces on the offense. So whose fault is it? It's just like the same they did with the Clippers. The Clippers had every piece they needed to be able to win the championship last year, and they didn't even make it to the conference finals. And Doc Rivers had to fall on the sword. Same thing with Bruce Arians. I mean, whose fault could it be? If it's not the team, it got to be the coach.
Listen, I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it could be equivalent to the Los Angeles Clippers if the Bucks end up losing before they get to the NFC Championship game. I think they could be the equivalent of them. Now, I'll say this. Here's my Pelican brief, because you know I got one every game. You know I got one. Here's my Pelican brief.
Hold on. Pelican brief.
You ready for this one, Talent? You ready for this one? Okay. I think Bruce Arians and the Bucks will lose. I don't think they're going to get to the Super Bowl. I think they will lose. And I think they're going to turn around and do their best and will succeed in hiring Josh McDaniels from New England Patriots and have Josh McDaniels come down there as the head coach of the Tampa Bay Bucks. And then we see what happens next year with Josh McDaniels in it. That's my Pelican brief.
And that Pelican brief was brought to you by KFC Chicken. Why don't you get some while it's hot? By Menon.
Okay.
That's not a Pelican brief. That's home cooking. That's wishful thinking.
No, not with me. I'm not a wishful thinker on that. I just think Tom Brady and Josh McDaniel have been around each other for so long. They've known each other like best friends. When Bruce Arians gets fired, Brady's going to management and saying, put all your money where your mouth is and go after Josh McDaniels. And then he can call McDaniels and tell him how great it is living in Tampa Bay. Because Tom Brady is, he's fawning over how great it is in Tampa Bay. He loves it. Buying a house there, everything. I think that's what he's going to do. Now, do you like that Pelican brief, Mr. Talent? Because you got analogies. I'm the Pelican brief guy.
I mean, it's beautiful if I was a Brady fan and a New England fan and all the magic, I want to see the magic again. This is the real world. This is the real world. You understand what I'm saying? You take that brief, you lock it up, and you don't open it again for a while because you out of your damn mind. That's not happening. I think, again, for them to lose would make that Pelican brief viable. They're not going to lose, right? So if they don't lose and they go to the dance before the dance or they go to the actual big dance, everybody got a job.
Right, right.
Everybody got a job.
Frank,
so the only reason that I would say I disagree with the Pelican brief is because I don't see the loss when you see the loss for that happen. Now, if the loss happens, it's very viable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say FOH.
Okay.
F out of here.
Let me say for the record, I don't want the Bucks to win. I'm a Patriots fan. I don't want the Bucks to win. That would kill me seeing my favorite quarterback leave, go to another team and win the Super Bowl. That absolutely destroyed me. So I'm not. Don't get it twisted. I'm not rooting for them to win. I'll be sitting every day talking about, okay, I hope they lose, because I will. Faye, what you think?
I'm gonna give that to you, Frank. I'm gonna give you your Pelican brief, and I'm gonna tell you why. If Talent and I can hope for AD to come to the Knicks, then you can have your Pelican brief. Let's get the band back together. All right, all the old guys. Let's get the band back together. And where do old guys usually go to retire? Florida. Isn't that a perfect place? It's right there in Florida. So this is an old guy making their new team in Florida for the retirement home type people. But listen, man, I don't know if that'll happen, but I'll tell you this. They've been talking about it on the sports shows about that exact thing happening. So I don't see it as far-fetched, especially if they lose and they don't get there. I think Bruce is out and Josh is in. And I mean, if he can leave. Is he still under contract? Can he leave?
Oh, he can leave, yeah. He can leave.
And I think it's a possibility, man. I think it's a strong possibility. I don't see man, the Patriots got a lot of work. The Patriots, Lord have mercy. Tampa Bay got a lot of work to do to be able to make that not happen. So let's just see. We got 3 more weeks.
We sure do. We got after this weekend, we got 3 more weeks. And I guess the next thing I want to ask you guys is the New Orleans Saints. They got the best D in the league. You know what I mean? Hands down. There's nobody can say anything else different than that. Everything else. So I guess my question to you, Talent, is if New Orleans does not win the Super Bowl with the best defense in the league, will the season seen as if it is, not accomplishment, not unreserved? Any word you want to say, basically a failure. Any word you want to say leading up to a failure. Do you think they'll look at it like that? Because right now they have the best defense in the league, and some people are saying that the Saints have had in the top 10 of the best defense of all time. So what do you think about that, Talon?
Who said that stupid stuff?
They all saying it. They all
of all time. Come on.
I said
Anyway,
top 10.
Here's my
The
thing.
best of all time. Top in the top 10 best defense of all time. Top 10.
Yeah, they're crazy. They're crazy. And what's going to happen this year? The proof is in the pudding, Frank.
Mhm.
What we're going to see get proven this year is this: the game has changed. The same way we had to adjust with the NBA changing, so did this new NFL thing. Remember, ushering out the old in with the new quarterbacks and all that. I hate to say it because I'm an old school football fan. This is an offensive league now.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been balanced and sometimes lean towards the defense of all our years growing up. I'm 51, and growing up, defense won games, and that was actually became one of the biggest slogans in sports. Defense wins games. Unfortunately, the way the game is played now, this is an offensive sport now. Whoever got the guns are going to prevail. The Saints are not going to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the number one defense. In a perfect storm, if we can quantum leap back 8-10 years, they can shoo-in, Super Bowl, shoo-in.
Mm-hmm.
2020, COVID season.
Yeah, I can't do, and you can't even touch the quarterback. Like if you tackle the quarterback now, you better have your arm around his waist because you can't hit him too high, you can't hit him too low. You can't. Listen. I don't understand.
It's an offensive league.
I don't understand what this. It drives me nuts. I don't understand the rules of the game, especially on the defensive side of the ball right now at all. I get
Let me
it,
explain it to you.
But doesn't it make
It's like
sense?
dating.
Hold on, doesn't it make sense if I tell you that I'm changing the game to gear it up to be offensive heavy instead of away from defense? Doesn't it make sense now?
Oh yeah, I agree with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Listen, man. Let me explain. It's like old school dating with a chaperone. You can't touch the quarterback. You couldn't touch the girl either with a chaperone. Old school back in the day. Oh, you couldn't touch her. That's the way they're treating these quarterbacks. And you know what? That explains why quarterbacks are playing longer and longer into their 40s. If you was hitting the quarterbacks like they was doing back in the day with Lawrence Taylor and all them boys like that, these quarterbacks, they be out of there too. They like, look, I got my money, I survived, I'm out of here. Ain't nobody playing until their 40s. Nobody would even consider playing into 45 years old or being as old as Tom Brady playing. But I'll tell you this about the Saints. They got a couple of quarterbacks that they can interchange and stuff like that might just help them out and might get them an opportunity to win because nobody is really geared up for these new quarterbacks that they have over there. And I really don't think that Drew is coming back. If he was wise with punctured lungs and 2 broken ribs on either side, for him to come back at his age would be ridiculous. I don't think he's coming back this season. It just doesn't. He would be crazy to come back this season. And you're going to come back into the playoffs where the game is heightened even more and they, and they're even more aggressive. I think that would be suicide.
I think honestly, for the record, because Drew ain't made it to the Super Bowl so many times, I think he's going to come back and try, especially if he thinks the team is going to get to the Super Bowl. I think he's going to come back and try to win. And if he does come back and they do happen to win, then I think he'll retire. But I think he's going to retire regardless either way, no matter what happens. I think he's done. But let's talk about the NBA. Time is moving on. I want to make sure we get to the top dogs. Excuse me. We're looking at the NBA is starting in 11 days. The preseason is kicking off tonight. So before we jump into all of that, I want to ask you. I know you guys are Knicks fans. I know you might even be rooting for the Nets. So let's put all that aside. Let's put all that aside.
No.
Which team are you most excited about besides your home team? Which team are you most excited about looking at playing? Because all the player movement is happening and everybody's mixing and matching and everything else. Which team say, you know what? I don't mind seeing these guys. I'm gonna go out on the limb right now, and I'm saying all the additions that the Phoenix Suns made. I'm really anxious to see what the Phoenix Suns look like this year and how they're gonna play out. That's my team that I'm picking besides my Celtics. You know what I mean? So and I don't want you to pick your home team. Pick a team, talent that you're most excited about seeing playing this year. And there's a lot of movement that happened over the season. A lot of things made a lot. more things I've seen happen this year than in, I don't know, 15, actually almost in ever. So with that being said, Talent, who you think? Your mic's off. Your mic.
I'm going to say the 76ers.
Oh, okay.
And the reason being is very simple. I didn't agree with the changing of guards with Doc falling on that sword, so to speak. And I'm very curious for him go to a whole new situation and make it a Doc-ish type of thing and see this team, because they fell short.
Mm-hmm.
They're the East Coast Clippers.
Right.
The Sixers fell way short. So the fact of Doc coming out of the situation he had to leave and to go there, I'm super excited and anticipating seeing how if he can change that around.
That's a great pick. I like your pick of the Sixers because of everything you said. And Doc is an integral piece. And I think one of the main reasons why they lost was because of coaching. Like, you know what I mean? Given if he had had this exact team last year and he had been coached, it might have been a different story.
But that's going to be very interesting to watch.
Right. It'll be very interesting to watch, see how they do that. With all that being said, Fig, question falls on you. Which team are you most interested in seeing with the additions or subtractions or whatever they made, everything else? My team is the Suns. Talent team is the Sixers. Who's your team?
Now, you said you can't pick a team where you're from, right?
No, I didn't say where you're from. I said just don't pick a team that's your team. Don't pick your team. Like if your team is, and I know your team is the Knicks, so don't pick the Knicks.
To tell you the truth, I got a toss up, and there's a reason why. I'm really anxious to see how Golden State does, because they was on that dynasty run, and they were knocked off. I truly believe because of injuries. Even without the addition of KD, I think they were knocked off because of injuries. And I'd like to see what Steph Curry could do with this new kid, Weissman, and some of the additional pieces that they added. And last but not least, just as a backup, I'd like to see what the Nets do, because I'm fans of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Not that they're in Brooklyn, but I'd like to see what that dynamic looks like. I haven't, those are two superstar players, and I'd like to see what that dynamic looks like. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the same team with the other pieces that they have surrounding them. I think that's an interesting combination. Those two things, and both because both of those teams are coming off major injuries of their stars.
Listen to this. Since you spoke of Kyrie Irving just recently got fined. As of last night, this morning, he got fined $25,000 for not talking to the people, the press. We all know you're supposed to talk to the press. The NBA sets it up. You got to talk to the press and everything else. Kyrie refused to talk to the press. He typed out a statement, had a statement typed. He said, Kyrie released another statement and said, "I don't talk to pawns." So, Talent, with that being said, how do you think that comes across to the media, the general public, just overall? Talk about, I don't talk to pawns.
He said, I don't talk to pawns?
That's exactly what he said. He said, I don't talk to pawns. Kyrie Irving, I don't talk to pawns.
To be honest, neither do I. But
I'm out of here.
Well, it was that one time I had to go to the pawn shop. But other than that, I don't talk to pawns either. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I think that you got to realize these guys have missed an entire season of basketball. And I think coming back, you have to have, he's pulling a 4-5. President 4-5 is the king of distraction. I'm distracting people because I need to make news before it's time to make news. This is his way of being in the news and becoming talked about and relevant. Because if you put everything together, the interview and dropping into facts and statements about LeBron, and then Kyrie said this over here, now the league is, I don't talk to pawns. I'm making you talk about me. Even though it's a negative way, what they always say, there is no bad press. Long as the press is talking about me, you got to realize, it's the NBA. You got 100 players that have been active this past season. I've been inactive. How do I make you still talk about me? I tell you how. Before I can step on the court, I say a few things, I leak a few things, and I get everybody go, oh, Kyrie said, you heard what Kyrie said? So now he's relevant until it's time to be relevant.
Yeah, but Talent, I think you can say certain things without setting that type of tone or that kind of message. I mean,
negative sales. That's a negative tone. Negative sales.
Yeah,
if he said, I love talking to pawns, nobody be talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if he said, I don't talk to pawns, that's the negative spin that makes the news guy go, what did he say? Print that. Negative sales. We all know that. It ain't but two things that sell in America: negative and sex.
Yeah.
And that's the top two.
I can't even knock anything you said. I just don't like what he said. But
yeah, I don't like it either.
But Fig, when you hear that, first of all, when you hear that, what was your thoughts?
Kyrie Irving has become the Marshawn Lynch of the NBA. He's beast mode now.
That's not fair to Marshawn Lynch.
No, I'm gonna tell you why, because he's gonna come on. Listen, Marshawn Lynch he didn't call them pawns, but he didn't like talking to the press either. And they kept finding him until he showed up at a press conference, and Kyrie Irving is gonna be like, I'm just here so I don't get fined. But the thing is, look.
That's hilarious, Fig. Hold on, that's hilarious. I remember him eating them M&Ms talking about, I'm just here so I don't get fined. What did he say, like 6 times in a row?
Oh, yeah. Every time they asked him a question, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
And that made the press.
Listen, here's the funny thing about the press, man. It's a two-edged sword, man.
Right.
The press is a two-edged sword. It could be for you or it could be against you. Here's the thing. With Kyrie Irving being such a social activist for the Black Lives Matter movement, these pawns that you call them are going to be the very same people that you need to get your message out in order to be able to move what it is that you're trying to move forward. That is ridiculous for him to make an enemy of people that you're going to need later. And, it goes back to the old school adage, you know what I mean? It's like, be careful, the bridges that you burn down, because you might have to cross them later. That's ridiculous. I don't even know why he would say something like that. Kyrie Irving is the master of bad press, man. He literally is. Since he left under Cleveland and under the LeBron James umbrella and era, he's had bad press ever since he left there. And the worst part about it is his new superstar doesn't like to talk to the press either. And every question that Kyrie doesn't answer, they're going to give it to KD, and it's going to be a distraction for KD.
Bingo.
That's dumb.
Bingo. So that brings in my next question. Do you see the Brooklyn Nets talent being able to go through a season without having so much distraction and possibly distracting him from winning or at least getting to the NBA Finals? What do you see, talent, with that?
I think distraction is expected. It's New York.
Mm-hmm.
There was never gonna be quiet. This team was never gonna be a quiet team. This is New York. You got to understand something. At the same time you bring these two high-profile players and supporting cast together, the Brooklyn Nets are still in a battle to take over the fan base of New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So the Knicks have owned it for so long. Now you dump this arena in Brooklyn. Everything about their whole MO is to steal from this. We need to be as viable and as credible as them. So how do we do that? We spend our money. We bring the stars. We do what we do. We make as much noise and ruckus, because if you're in New York, the rumblings need to be about the Nets and not the Knicks. So it was never going to be a quiet situation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I could say a couple of things and throw a couple of things in, but overall, you're absolutely right. With that being said, Fig, what do you think? Coming into New York, what do you think?
To me, it's just crazy because these guys, it's like the king of New York kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's what they want to be as far as the NBA and basketball. Mm-hmm. But Madison Square Garden has been the mecca of basketball since I could remember, since the 70s. Mm-hmm. All of the greats want to play at Madison Square Garden, even if you want another team. When you go to Madison Square Garden, you want to show out. You want to show up and show out because that was the Mecca. You know, everybody wanted to play at the Garden.
Yeah.
Now that the Brooklyn Nets has come there, they're vying, like Talon said, they're vying for that, you know, that fan base. You know, it's like Brooklyn against New York, like New York, the Knicks against the Nets, whatever, stuff like that. You gonna come in, start in trouble, like before you even really play your first. I wouldn't say this is Kyrie's first game, but like this is your first game with KD and the new team, and you're trying to make a statement. This is the statement you want to make. I don't talk to pawns.
But not only that, you do that at the day of. Notice the timing of Kyrie. He did it. The statement was released the day the preseason, NBA preseason was getting ready to kick off. I think everything that dude does and says is literally calculated. I really honestly do. I think he's brilliant in one sense, and I also think he said some idiotic stuff, but I think all his stuff is calculated.
It's only because the only reason he said it is because the earth is flat.
Yeah, he does believe that. He does believe that. All right, but again, because the NBA preseason is kicking off tonight, I want to ask you guys another question, Dave, because you know all these questions we want to ask that we might be able to refer back to and go back to. So, which NBA team, which NBA team is under the most pressure to win an NBA title this year? I'm gonna throw it out there. My pick would be the Milwaukee Bucks. If Giannis agrees to that extension, which he has 10 days to do. If he agrees to the extension, he signs on, and he's in the Milwaukee Bucks uniform, I think the Milwaukee Bucks will be by far the biggest team under the most pressure that anybody's seen in years to win an NBA title. That's my opinion. Who do you think is under the most pressure to win an NBA title?
I think it's still the Clippers, man. I think it's still the Clippers. I think they got them, especially given SmackDown falling short this past one. I think that just made it even worse. They already last year was the one people was expecting to win the chip, and they fell short. So guess what happens? When you don't break that team up and you leave those guys together, that intensifies the pressure.
Yeah, that's a great pick. That's a great pick.
That raised the ante to the 100th hour because you didn't change nothing. Like, see, if you broke the team up, then people would go with the players. They would split, expectations would dissolve or whatever, but you didn't. Matter of fact, you anteed up.
Mm-hmm.
You anteed up with a Paul George.
Yeah,
you said, you know what? We're gonna double down on Mr. Depression over here. So we're gonna go with Mr. Anxiety. We're gonna double down on him because we feel like that anxiety pressure thing was a fluke. It ain't gonna happen again. We going where we were supposed to go. Chip or bust. That's what you're saying with that money.
Honestly, that's the perfect analogy. I mean, I think a 2020, that's the best analogy you said today was the double down. I think, especially when it comes to the Clippers, because that's exactly what they doubled down. And somebody could say literally, because it's 4 times. I don't know what 4-time double down is. I don't know what that'd be called, but they doubled down by times 4. So that's a great analogy, great point.
Yeah, that's quattro down.
Is it quadro down? Okay, let's go with quadro down.
That's why in the sports they say he pulled the quad or he ruptured the quad down.
I'm with you.
I'm gonna roll with that.
Okay, so my pick is the Bucks under the most pressure. Talon's pick is the obviously the Clippers for the most pressure. Fig, who's your pick for this upcoming 2020-2021 season for the NBA team under the most pressure to win an NBA championship?
The Knicks, because we haven't won since 1973. That's why. No,
the pressure ain't go nowhere. All these.
They ain't got no pressure.
You know what? Listen, I would say the Bucks, but the reason I can't agree with the Bucks is because it's known throughout the league that you need at least 2 to 3 superstars, like bona fide stars, to be able to win. And still, even with the additions, they only have Giannis. I gotta go again. I gotta agree with Talent, man, on this, because the Clippers stand pat with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Both of them melted down in a game 7. Both of them did. They played horribly. I mean, Kawhi Leonard didn't hit the side of the backboard with a 3-point shot, but with a 3-point shot, but he still played horribly. They both played horribly. And
what do you mean he didn't? He hit the backboard twice in Game 7. Paul George.
Kawhi Leonard?
No, Paul George.
I said Kawhi Leonard did not hit the side of the backboard like Paul George, during a shot. But those guys really, because they was talking about Kawhi Leonard was the next guy. They was talking about he was better than LeBron James. He has a lot to prove. Paul George has a lot to prove because he played so horribly. They got rid of Doc. They got Ty Lue. There's a lot of pressure on them to take over at Los Angeles. Just like we were talking about the Nets to take over New York, the Clippers have a lot of pressure on them to take over Los Angeles from the Lakers. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure for them to be able to come through. And last but not least, I think the NBA, because of the COVID, is going to have to create another form of the bubble if they're going to be able to get through this season without people testing positive like the NFL.
Yeah, we'll talk about that possibly again in the next couple of days. I want to talk about that point. But let me bring this other point up too. Speaking of bringing pressure and everything else, talk about teams under pressure and anything else, there are players under pressure also. So let's look at John Wall, because John Wall now, when he got traded to the Rockets, he hasn't played a great season in 2 years because of injury prone and everything else. Town, looking at John Wall going down to Houston and being a part of that big trade, now that he's obviously part of the Houston Rockets, do you think John Wall's under a lot of pressure to perform very, very well? Do you think he's going to put pressure on himself to play very, very well? Or what's your thought process of just even being in the Houston Rockets uniform? I will say this. For the record, and we could discuss this, you go tell me your point. I'll say this. I'll say if he doesn't perform well this season, his rank of where he was will go from basically from here all the way down to here, because then people will be like, you know what? You're not worth the contract that you're written on. You know what I mean? You're really not worth that. And it could be because of injury, and it's not fair. But that's my thought process on John Wall, even though he's a great player. But what's your thought process on John Wall with pressure going down in Houston in the Houston Rockets uniform?
I don't think it's no pressure.
No pressure?
Really? No, I don't think there's no pressure. I think the only pressure John Wall's facing is the return to be as good behind the injury. Not to be in Houston. I don't think that's the team that brings him pressure. He's such a high octane player, man. You got to call it what it is. You would have to put him in a way more pressure situation to say, oh my God, John Wall's coming back. The pressure, Houston ain't the pressure. Okay. We just seen Houston over the last 4 or 5 seasons become, thanks to James Harden, a revolving door of good or great players that came and went. You know what I mean? There's no pressure. Houston just ain't got no pressure. People, I think, have accepted the fact that it's this decent-ass team that ain't getting over the hump. Okay. It ain't like looking at Denver. You look at Denver, and like you said yesterday on the show, Frank, Denver keep doing this. Denver keep keeping on your ass. Every time you look at Denver, you're doing something more. Houston ain't doing that. Okay. Houston is the same. You know what the newest thing in Houston did? I think they changed the uniform again.
Yeah, they did. Honestly, for the record, they did.
That's about it.
They did. Fig, I want to ask you this question to you, and I want to ask another question. Then I want to get the top dog. So keep it under 60 seconds. Tell me what you think.
Fig. What, like, is there pressure on John Wall? Or who the pressure on John Wall?
Pressure on John Wall to perform well in Houston. Pressure on the team.
I don't think so. I think the pressure should be on the front office for all the horrible moves that they made, to the point where their superstar, their staple, wants to leave. I think John Wall is coming there under a situation where you can't put it on him. It's not like he's James Harden. You know what I mean? You can't put it on him. Number one, because he's coming off an injury, and number two, he's going to a new situation, and the team is selling off pieces like they filed bankruptcy.
Listen, Fig, you're batting 1,000 today. I love all your answers. You're batting 1,000 today. Which player? Last question before we do top dogs. Which player in the NBA is under the most pressure to perform in this upcoming season? And I'm going to say this. I think I won't even say mine first, because I've been going first the last couple of times. Talent, who is your pick for NBA player in this upcoming season? Get ready to jump off. Which player is your pick under the most pressure to perform?
Kawhi. I'm still with Kawhi Leonard on the Clippers. I think that whole thing, he was the man.
Mm-hmm.
And rightfully so. At that point, when he went there, he was the best player in the league. KD was out. KD was the best player. Then KD was out. It deferred down to Kawhi. And all that loss, all that letdown is on that man's shoulders. The team went out and got who you wanted them to go get, who you felt comfortable with making this run. So we can't put the pressure. We can criticize Paul George all we want, but we can't put the weight on his shoulders. That's Kawhi's weight.
I think I like your pick. I like your pick. Fig, who's your pick for the NBA player under the most pressure to perform and to do well for their team this year?
You know, I think it's funny that Talent said you can't put the weight on Paul George's shoulders, even though he's coming off of 2 shoulder surgeries.
That's true. But who's your pick? Who's your pick?
You know what? I'll put it to you this way. I wouldn't put the pressure on Paul George for the Clippers to win the championship, but he has to play well. He can't be the reason that they lose.
So your pick,
yes, and the reason that the reason the people are saying the reason that the Clippers lost, they're blaming it on Paul George. So I think the pressure is on him not to win it all, but Paul George has to play like Paul George. Mm-hmm. He has to play at a high level, and Paul George cannot be the reason that the Clippers lose. So for that reason, I think the pressure's on Paul George. My
pick for the player with the most pressure to prove a lot of things wrong is Kevin Durant, because of what he's coming back with a couple of injuries and what happened with him on the way out with Golden State. And then obviously how he came into Brooklyn and how so many people are looking for them to turn around obviously the entire Brooklyn Nets franchise. I think Kevin Durant's the guy. I think if they don't perform well, if they don't even at least get to the final, the NBA finals, a lot of people in Brooklyn and probably all around the NBA are going to think that the Brooklyn Nets failed for the season. That's my pick. Okay.
Now let me ask you this: what happens if Kevin Durant doesn't play well because of the injury? What if that's the reason?
That could be a question for another day. I think that's a good point. Good point. The question for another day. Anyway, let's get ready to do the top dogs, because now it's 40
top dogs.
Let's get ready to get that top dog thing. And Fig, I will say this before you start. I know Derrick Henry ain't on that list. That's all I'm gonna say. I know Derrick Henry ain't on that list.
Ladies and gentlemen, ready for the top dogs? Let me hear you, Bob. This top dog segment is brought to you by Generation. Top dogs, ladies and gentlemen. The top dogs of the week. Here we go. We got 2 weeks in a row. Number 1 on my list, in no particular order. 2 weeks in a row. It's the AARP quarterback himself, Aaron Rodgers, over the Eagles, 30-16, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Got to give it to the old man that they call that bad man, Aaron Rodgers. Ladies and gentlemen, number 2 on my list, I wrote it down just this way, bringing it back to preschool. I got to give it to the patty cake baker's man, because he put it in the oven, baby, and rolled it up, and they won that game. Baker Mayfield in a shocker, the Cleveland Browns over the Tennessee Titans. What? Over the Tennessee Titans, this kid threw for 334 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I got to give it to Baker Mayfield, baby, because that was the upset of the week. I got to give it to you. Number 3 on my list, I got to give it to Matt Stafford of Detroit, the Detroit Lions, over the Bears in a rivalry game, throwing the ball all over the yard for 402 yards and 3 touchdowns. Matt Stafford, who is this guy? Ladies and gentlemen, now this one is going to be a little off the cuff. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm giving it to the entire defensive squad of the New York Giants. Why? Because they held the Seattle Seahawks to 12 points. Russell Wilson, Sierra, the Legion of Boom, 12 points. I'm giving it to the entire defense of the New York Giants, holding that juggernaut team to only 12 points. The entire defense of the Giants. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, I'm giving it to an old favorite. We haven't seen this guy in a while. Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens over the Dallas Cowboys, doubling up the score 34-17 in a Tuesday night game. Tuesday night football? Who ever heard of such a thing? He passed for 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. He rushed for an additional 91 yards and 1 touchdown for a grand total 201 yards, 3 touchdowns. Let's give it to the running quarterback himself, Lamar Jackson, the former MVP, and that's the 5 top dogs of the
I like
week.
those picks. I like those picks. I like those picks. I like those picks. I can't even knock it. I absolutely like those picks. You know what, Finn? You're onto something with this week's picks. You're onto something. You're onto something. I like it. The New York Giants defense, the tie line. That was a tricky one. I absolutely like that one because you know what? You couldn't think about one person. The entire line, they smashed. Yeah, that was a good pick. I want to throw my last question out there. Last question of the day. Minnesota Timberwolves GM Scott Layden got fired. Okay, he got fired last night, this morning, whatever. He got fired recently. Now, with Minnesota doing that, getting fired and everything else, do you think them firing him is because of ownership did not like where Minnesota was going, or they didn't like because of a couple of picks that they lost? Because Minnesota is one of the worst. Over the last NBA season, this past year, they did hardly anything. They didn't change the team. They lost some picks. Matter of fact, Karl Anthony Towns is sitting there right now. He wants to leave. Everybody knows he wants to leave. They were not able to make a trade for him. And guess what? Ownership said, you couldn't trade him. If we couldn't get no picks out of him, you fired him. And they fired him the eve of the NBA season, getting ready to kick off. What was your thoughts when you hear about that, Talent? That's the last question.
I'm always sad to hear somebody get fired so close to the holidays. This COVID season is ruthless, man. Nobody cares no more. The guy just put I know Scott Layden. He just put a tree up. Oh, this is terrible. But I think it's what you said, Frank. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, ownership looks down and look at the time frame. They look at what what makes it bad for you? When they look at what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
When you see everybody making moves and you're Minnesota and you're like, dude, we didn't do nothing. We're not going nowhere. Like, we're not going to do any better than we were 5-6 years ago. Like, what are we doing here? And you're the GM, and I can guarantee you at the GM level, if you don't have the right answers, no Christmas for you, buddy.
Yeah. You know what? I can't dispute you at all. All I know is you need to be fired if you're sitting in that position and you work with money and you have commodity and they didn't do nothing to it. You didn't do nothing. Yeah. Faye, what you think?
I'll tell you this, Scott Layton's favorite song is I'll Be Home for Christmas.
Yeah, because he's home.
Yeah, he's gonna be home for Christmas, baby. He ain't got nowhere to go. He'll be right there in Minnesota with the Timberwolves. Let me tell you what the Timberwolves are doing, baby. They tanking. You got a player like the Big Cat, and you can't get nothing for him. You got Karl Anthony Towns.
Right.
This kid is a monster.
Right.
You could have figured out something. I would, if Golden State didn't pick up this dude, Weissman, in the draft, I would have loved to see Big Cat in Golden State, baby. I would love to see Big Cat. Hold on, wait a minute. Am I about to say it? Yes, in Boston. Yeah. Boston, ladies and gentlemen. Can we take the Big Cat and put him in Boston? I mean, could you imagine, Frank, what the Celtics would look like with those players and Big Cat?
I have imagined.
I don't know. Scott Layden, he fell, man. I mean, you couldn't make no deals. You got a perennial all-star, and you can't make a deal for this kid. It's ridiculous, man. He deserved to be fired, man. Got to get rid of him. Got to go. Get out of here.
That's it. That's the show.
Get out of here.
That's the show. Everybody get, this is what we always do is Friday afternoon. We got to get ready to wrap stuff up. Talent, tell everybody out there how they can follow you.
Hey, man, don't follow me. Do not follow me. I'm in Atlantic City. I'm on the low. Do not follow me. Follow me at Comedian Fit.
Make sure you put your Batman mask on so they won't even see you. Fig, how they follow you?
And you can follow me at Comedian Fig. Talent is gonna be there. Hey, Talent, man. Let me just say this: you down in Atlantic City, do not gamble away all our inheritance, man. That's our money we're gonna need when we get old, man. Do not gamble away our money down there in Atlantic City.
He is in Atlantic City having a good time.
Today's word, inheritance.
Hey, y'all, that's the show. That's Fig. That's Talent. I'm Frank. We'll see y'all Monday. The show's called The Box Seats. One every Monday through Friday from 1 to 2. We are on the platform called The Humor Mill. And, of course, you can download the app. And in case you've seen us on social media, you can download the app and see us and more content, all that and some. And then, of course, you can call the cable service provider, tell them to add the channel, too, because we are on some platforms. Until then, we'll see y'all Monday.
Wait a minute, Frank. What is the Humor Mill?
We'll talk about that some other time. I can't even.
All Black Comedy Channel, baby. All black all the time. Tell them, Frank.
Okay, I like what you're saying, Fig. I like how you do that. We out. We gotta see y'all Monday, same bat time.
I'll see y'all, man.
Same bat time. Be safe. Talent, be safe.